What's up, Commander fans? This is Planeswalker 414, bringing you another EDH deck tech. One of the newer generals, and one that kind of flew under the radar from me as well. But after looking at another player play it, I saw something that I thought I could exploit. A good friend of mine named Josh Barnett plays this deck as a beast theme tribal. And it's very, very good. Don't get me wrong. But something that I saw in here is that this guy makes a ton of tokens. So I was like, man, a general that just makes infinite tokens for me and makes more and more the more it dies, sign me up. Let's see what we can do to abuse that. So this is my Marath Naya token deck. So I hope you guys enjoy it. But let's go over the mana base here real quick to make sure that we get a firm grip. Runs 34 lands, which may seem a little light, but I think you'll see with the amount of mana ramping that we have that it's really a good thing because it gives us more options for spells. So, of course, it wouldn't be Commander if you weren't playing Command Tower. I think it's one of the 7 deadly sins if you don't play Command Tower in your Commander deck. Just saying. Jungle Shrine, so this is all mana fixing, so this way we always hit our colors. Transguild Promenade's also going to make sure we hit our colors. There again, this is a great, cheap, way. If you don't have Command Tower, you can run Transguild Promenade, and it's like a 25, 15 cent card at most. It's great in Commander. Who cares if it comes into the battlefield tapped? You play this on turn 2, there's nothing happening on turn 2 that really matters. So, boom, you fixed your mana in one go. Evolving Wilds will also help with that. The Baller on a Budget fetch land, as I like to call it. For some ramping, Temple of the False God. Always a good card. Gavany Township. If we're going to be having a ton of little tokens, let's make those bad boys as nasty as possible. Putting a bunch of +1/+1 counters on it will do that for us. Kessig Wolfrod. This is great because you will generate too many threats for them to block, and whichever one is not getting blocked, guess which one's getting pumped. And you could swing in for some nasty damage on that. So let's talk about the rest of the colors here. We run each one of the bounce lands. Love these things. A lot of utility to the bounce lands. You can recur, certain cards, especially the cycle land cards, which we'll get to in a moment, but big fan of the bounce lands. Next, we run each one of the shock lands. Stomping Grounds, Temple Garden, and Sacred Foundry. Next, we've got each one of the Buddy Lands, Clifftop Retreat, Rootbound Crag, and Sunpetal Grove. Some Guild Gates. I love me some Guild Gates. I mean, why not? They're like dirt cheap, and there's like 1 million of them in stock right now. So, like, I opened a box the other day in my room of looking at all the basic lands. I had more Guild Gates than I had basic lands in my land box. So, Wizards, who might have gone a little overboard with the Guild Gates. Little Scrying never hurts anybody. Temple of Triumph and Temple of Abaddon. That way, make sure you can hit the cards you want to. Never hurts. And why not? Let's gain a life. Kazandu Refuge. Kazandu. Interesting name. Alright, next. Psycho Lands. Love these bad boys. Cheap. You can get them at any store for like 25 cents. And you're going to make sure that if you're getting flooded, great, I'm going to draw a card. So let's fix that. And then for our basics, pretty much 3 of each one. 3 plains, 3 mountains, and of course 3 forests. And if you are going to get a forest, I highly recommend making it a foil forest. Oh yeah. But I digress. Alright, so let's talk about how we're going to be getting to our mana base here. I have a ton of mana regeneration in this deck. To me, it's like one of the secrets of EDH. The more mana you can generate, that in itself is an advantage that's unstoppable. Name me one card besides Stone Rain or Armageddon that deals with the threat of mana, And if you're playing Armageddon, you're probably not invited at most people's EDH tables, so it's not really a real issue. So, if there's one thing that is an undeniable power in Standard, is that the ability to generate more mana than your opponent is a tremendous advantage. So let's see about how we're going to do that. First, for making tokens, let's make some tokens that can be used for mana, or chump blockers for that matter. Awakening Zone, great card. Recently found this card, and I think it is amazing. Mana Echoes. If you're generating tokens, like put 3 1/1s into play that are the same creature, put 4 1/1s into play that are the same creature, you effectively just created 4 1/1 mana for yourself that's colorless. So you're getting spells for free practically at that point. And if you're making a whole bunch of tokens in the early game, let's sack them to get a big fatty out there, or get a massive spell out that puts some even more advantage out in the field. Ashnod's Altar is great, amazing card. I think Ashnod's Altar is one of those EDH staples that if you have any type of sack effect in your design, Ashnod's Altar is a must-have. Next, we're going to go over just the traditional Kadama's Reach, Cultivate, Farseek. Make sure we hit our land drops. I also am a big fan of Signets. They're not too expensive. They're like 50 cents to $1, I think, at most. But you're going to make sure you filter your land and get the colors you need to ramp up. Now, this next one is probably will be probably the card of more contention about its proper use in this deck. But after playing with it, I would gladly debate anyone on this. Probably the best ramp card in the deck is Xenagos the Reveler. Everyone thinks, oh, well, yeah, whatever, I get to make a cool little 2/2 token as much as I want. Who cares? If I've got 5 1/1s on the field, I effectively have 5 red-green mana just sitting there at my disposal. So I mean, you're practically doubling your mana production every turn with Xenagos. And being as tokens are so easy to produce, you're never going to have to worry about not having creatures on the field. This guy can get out of hand so quickly, that you can do some really nasty stuff. One of the nice combos you'll see later on in the deck can generate, mana equal to your life total, and then you can imagine what you can do with a burn spell there. So we'll get to that in a moment. So we have a bunch of creatures entering the battlefield. Let's see what we can do to maximize our value there. Warstorm Surge. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature or player. This thing is sick. If you can find a way to give your creatures Death Touch, which I really haven't put it into the game just yet, but if you can, creatures that have Death Touch that enter the battlefield ping for 1 point of Death Touch damage and can wipe the board easily. But this is a card that will immediately get hated on just for the amount of damage it generates for creatures entering the battlefield. It's basically like a cheaper version of Porphyros. If you can't find Porphyros, you can find Warstorm Surge. No problem. I found this next card in the 2013 Commander's Arsenal for the Prosh deck. And what it was doing in Prosh, I have no clue, because this thing was made for the Naya token deck. If one or more, this thing is awesome. It's basically like, what doesn't it do? If one or more tokens that we put onto the battlefield, put twice those on there. Great. If a creature has +1 or +1 counters put on it when it enters the battlefield, put double that many as well. Well, what does Marath do? Basically, both of those things. So for 5, let's say you cast Marath for 5 mana with this thing on the field. Marath's going to enter the battlefield with 10 counters on it, and then you could then theoretically on your next turn, if you spent all 10 of that, you could produce 20 tokens. That is just sick. Love that card. Eat it with a spoon. All right. Hammer Porphyros. For generating a lot of tokens, we need to let them attack immediately, because much like the cranberry said, if you have to let it linger, it's not good. I'm sorry for that one. I couldn't help myself. Mirari's Wake. Love this card. Double mana production and Anthem at the same time. Yes, please. More of that. Fires of Maya. Another haste effect. Usually all you need is 2. I used to play a third one in there with Fervor, but it's just unnecessary, I think. Parallel Lives, let's double some more tokens. And if we're making a whole bunch of tokens, let's gain life for every time they enter the battlefield. Or make them have Vigilance. That's a great ability. Love that. There's a nice little combo you'll see later on that I'll show you that really takes advantage of the Vigilance later on. Path to Bravery. Love this card. This card is a recent addition. Give me some more life. And most likely I'm going to be gaining so much life that I'll be above 40 pretty soon, so now my creatures get +1/+1. But mainly, it's there for the life gain. But probably, if you're going to play any type of token strategy nowadays, I cannot stress enough how the next card is the most important card out of it, and that is Cathar's Crusade. Holy God, is this card powerful. You know, the triggers that you get alone off of this, and I'm going to show you an artifact later on that can double those. I mean, you just win the game in a swing if you've got a haste effect on the field. You know, because if you, let's say for example, this is on the field and 5 1/1s hit the field at the same time, all those creatures see each other at the same time, so they'd all get +5/+5. You know, a friend of mine tried to debate me on that. We spent some time looking it up online. So I'm about 90% certain that the ruling is correct, that they would all see each other at the same time. But even if it's not, let's say that I'm wrong and it's the staggered +1/+1s where the first one comes in with +5, then the next one comes in with +4, the next one comes in with +3. That is still ridiculous. That thing can end games in one swing. Or not one swing, but one swing of your creatures. Alright, so we've talked about how we're going to do nasty things to our opponent. Let's talk about what we're going to do to stop us having nasty things done to us. Swords to Plowshares. You gotta keep people under control. Everyone talks about how they like the old art. I really like this old art here. It's like, hey, I used to be a fighter, and then I took an arrow in the knee, so now I cut wheat for a living, but I miss my castle. Anyhow, I went a little deep there. Beast Within. If you're running green, no excuse not to have this card. Get rid of problem cards, planeswalkers, enchantments, artifacts, you name it. Path to Exile. Yeah, foil, Judge's promo. What? Revoke Existence, Exile. Always a very huge benefit. Relic of Progenitus. Your graveyard isn't extremely important in this game. I mean, there are some ways that we can recur it later on. So this is kind of just a break in case of an emergency. If you're playing against that Reanimator, deck, whether it's, a junk deck like Carador, or either it's the bug deck. The commander is escaping my mind. It's like, anywho, but it's that slime thing that becomes every creature in every graveyard. That's just scary as hell. This is designed to say no. Swat it on the nose and say no. Speaking of making tokens, sometimes you just need to blow up artifacts and make tokens, and it's at instant speed, tremendously advantageous for only 2 mana. This is probably, though, one of your best cards in the deck, though. Aura Shards. With this thing on the field, you're pretty much going to guarantee that other people won't be able to enhance their deck with static effects, because you're just simply, every time you're casting creatures, you're blowing up that many artifacts or enchantments. And it's a May ability, so you don't have to blow up your own stuff. So that is a nasty card. Can't recommend it enough. Alrighty, so if we are talking about what we're doing with tokens, let's go over a couple of quick little things here. I missed a couple of artifacts that I think that should be talked about. There's a lot. Anytime we're dealing with a multicolor deck, Chromatic Lantern is a must-have artifact just to make sure you hit your colors. Can't stress that enough. I don't think of it as ramp. I think of it as mana fixing more. The next is a great Mondo combo with Basilisk's Collar and Marath, Will of the Wild. Marath, one of his abilities, as you can see here, is in addition to making tokens, is that this nice guy right here says, oh, I can remove counters to ping someone for damage. What shall I ever do with pinging? Death Touch and Lifelink. Sounds good to me. So you can control a board state real quick with that. I've never seen people cast so many naturalizes so quickly when they see that hit the board. But the next card is another secret sauce card that is just amazing in this deck, Strionic Resonator. There are so many triggered effects in this game, whether it's Cathar's Crusade, Enter the Battlefields with Warstorm Surge, triggered effects from when Marath hits the battlefield, even. You name it. Strionic Resonator is going to double those effects for you for cheap, 2 mana. Awesome card. Can't stress it enough. This will be one. In my opinion, this will be one of those cards that, much like, I know that I might be a little controversial here, but oh my God, dare I say it, Soul Ring-esque? I mean, why? Give me one reason not to play this card in a deck. You know what I mean? There's too many. If the one thing EDH does is it tries to maximize value, and with enter the battlefield, leave the battlefield, when something happens, sack this. I mean, this card is just amazing. It was designed for EDH. Next, let's talk about board wipes, because sometimes things just get out of hand, and if you don't board wipe, you're going to die. Terminus. Not a lot of people like to play Terminus because they don't like to tuck their general, but who cares? Because you're playing tokens 9 times out of 10. And if you're playing Marath correctly, most likely he is either in the general zone or he's already made his token, so he's not going to get affected by this. Foily Terminus, too. I got very lucky with this. Love that. But great card for this design, because tokens are easily replaceable. Creatures are that to get tucked make sad pandas. Hour of Reckoning, great card. Convoke, so you can tap down tokens and then blow up everything that's not a token creature. So this is kind of like the White's version of for tokens of oh lord, it's a black card. Anywho, but basically you get the value for it. It's skipping my memory. Phyrexian Rebirth, destroy a whole bunch of creatures and get a big fatty artifact token. Don't mind if I do. Don't need a lot of Wraths, because like I said, your strategy is to overwhelm the board, but you know, sometimes there's certain creatures that are hexproof, or they've got boots on, Swiftfoot boots or Lightning Greaves, you got to deal with them. So let's talk about drawing some cards. Since we're a token strategy, I tried to base as many of these on things that kind of have synergies with that. Recently came across this card, Overwhelming Instinct. Great card. Whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures, draw a card. Sounds good to me. Staff of Nin. Sorry, slip of the tongue there. Love me some Staff of Win. This thing is just great. If you're playing colors that don't give you a lot of card draw, it's a much more expensive Howling Mind, but at least it's a Howling Mind where you get all the benefits. Speaking of which, Howling Mind. Harmonize. Collective Unconscious. This is great. Draw a card for each creature you control. I easily draw 10 plus cards every time I cast that card. For early game shenanigans, Mentor the Meek is great. If you do have a great big fatty, Momentous Fall is there. And there's a couple of fatties that we do run the deck, but primarily we run tokens, so can't hurt. But if you're running tokens, Skull Clamp, you gotta have it. Clamp them up, sack them, taking full advantage of that. Self-explanatory. Skull Clamp plus 1/1 equals draw 2 cards and win game. Alrighty, so let's talk about some token generation. Boom. Increasing Devotion. Tremendous card. Especially with the flashback to where you can get 10 back. So if you've got Parallel Lives out there, if you've got Primal Vigor out there, yeah, let's not make 5, let's make 10. Or hey, let's not make 10, let's make 20. Boom. Symbol of the Legion, same thing as well. These are upkeep triggers. So technically, since it's a trigger, you can activate it with Stronic Resonator. Highly recommend that. Rith the Awakener. I had him originally as the deck's general prior to Marath coming out when I was kind of like toying with the idea of a Naya tokens deck. But honestly, you know, he's best served mainly as just a creature for the late game, and he makes a great target for Momentous Fall later on where you can draw 6 cards. But you know, if he's on the field, he's a conditional creature. You're not going to play him right into the thick of things early on. You're going to play him around turn 10, 9, after people have kind of pulled the trigger early on their Swords to Plowshares or their Doom Blades or whatever it is that they're holding in their hand, because they're going to see some really scary creature hit the field and be like, oh my god, I got to kill it. This guy then swoops in afterwards and says, thank you, and now I'm going to make a ton of tokens. And there again, trigger effect. Living Hive. Another trigger effect. Wow, I'm sensing a theme here. 6/6, and it's got Trample, so you know it's going to get through to get its damage, because whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you get that many 1/1s. Great card. Hero of Bladehold. Probably one of the best token generators. Love it. Since we do have a lot of soldiers that we produce with the Symbol of the Legion and Hero of Bladehold, Captain the Watch has a lot of nice synergies with it. So you can give your creatures +1/+1, and also to make sure that you're generating vigil. I'm sorry. Is it all soldiers get? Yeah, soldiers get vigilance as well. So there's a nice little combination of stuff there. Thopter Assembly. Cannot speak enough about how great this card is. This is going to sit there around you and fly around and defend you and keep making infinite tokens for you unless somebody deals with it eventually. So it's a great defensive card because sometimes you just got to stop people from flying over your creatures' heads. White Sun Zenith. Instant speed. That's probably the best thing about this card. Never mind the token generation. Instant speed token generation. So just sit there and hold off until the end of their turn. When they pass to you, say, okay, White Sun for 6 or 7. And then get 7 2/2s and make sure that you were smart enough to be ready for any type of effect. And then once you're good to go, just to go in there and bash face with a whole bunch of kitty cats. Meow meow. Crater Hoof Behemoth. This guy just wins the game for you. I mean, you don't even have to have... all you need is like 5 tokens, and you can kill 2 players easily with him. It's just sick. Can't stress enough how awesome he is. Elspeth. This person is awesome, because not only generating you tokens, they're going to be able to destroy all creatures with 4 power or less, which most likely is what you're going to have on the field. So you don't have to worry about your creatures dying, and then once you get that emblem, it's a good game for everybody else. GG. Ultrava Hellkite. I don't see a lot of people playing this card, but in this deck it just makes sense. Whenever a dragon you control attacks, that's a whenever, so that's a trigger. Stronic Resonator. Make 2 dragons that are 6/6 onto the battlefield. Just an amazing card. 6/6 flyer too. This card in the late game can easily just take over the match. If we're playing tokens, you have to run Avengers into card. I think it's just part of the rules. Like there's a secret, agreement we all have that if you're playing green, you're going to be running Avengers into card on some level. But awesome card with the token generation. Wolfbriar Elemental. Once you combine Chromatic Lantern with this, you can easily generate 10, 12, wolves in a single turn. It's just amazing. Tristani Summoner. I'm not a big fan of Japanese cards or other cards in other languages because I'm not the brightest Magic player in the world. I'll be the first one to admit. So reading the text is pretty important. So that way I'll know exactly what my cards do, because there's been many a time where I thought a card did something and then slammed it on the table thinking that I was about to do something awesome, only to be told by my friends, no, sorry, stupid, you don't know what your own card does. So, but luckily I know what Tristani Summoner does. So. Hellrider. Oh yes, Hellrider. He's back, baby. So all these tokens, save him for an alpha strike against somebody, and then look at him and say sadness on the stack, and then say sadness resolves. Stormherd. This card is amazing. 10 mana to get as many 1/1 white Pegasus creatures with flying. Okay. Equal to my life total. Yes, please. Thank you. And with this combined together with Enter the Battle Effect ability of Warstorm Surge, you're dealing 40, 50 damage. And then if you really are doing something really nasty, like with Mana Echoes, which these are all 1/1 creatures, so I just effectively got, let's say that I played this, excuse me, and I had a Xenagos in play as well. You play this, you gain 40 red and green, and then you also gained 40 from the Mana Echoes. This is if your life totals. So I'm now at 80 mana. And you're like, what do I do with 80 mana? I just don't know. Oh my god. I'll tell you what you do. You point that big cannon at someone's face and you say, Banefire, bitches. So yeah, Banefire is a great way to win the match. Just shoot somebody. And seeing there again, the combination of triggers. If Warstorm Surge is still out there, you're getting 40 damage regardless. That's ultimately the thing, is when you're building these decks, you want your tokens to give you an immediate benefit of just resolving. Who cares if they swing? What can I get out of them for just resolving? So that's the best way to build any creature deck, because with so much control out there, it can easily make a sad panda out of you. Now, if I'm generating all these tokens, what the heck do I do with them? One thing that I feel we've all been a victim of is something like propaganda. or it's the White Muse. I forget its name, but basically it creates the same effect as Propaganda, to where you have to spend 2 mana to attack. Windborne Muse. There we go. But if we've got 20 creatures on the field, I'm not about to spend 40 mana to swing. So you know what you do to that guy? You play this card. Burn at the stake. All right, I'll just tap down 15 creatures and deal 15 times 3, shoot you in the face for 45 damage. Yes, I didn't need to have to attack you, huh? Womp womp. If you're playing red, there's no reason on God's Green Earth you should ever play, or not play Insurrection. This thing just wins you games. So many times out of the blue, everybody thinks they're safe, and then you play Insurrection and just win. Lastly, this is one of my trap cards. You have to laugh maniacally whenever you cast this too. Is in the situation to where if someone's just beating your face in over and over and over and over again, and there's nothing you can do about it, and then on the turn before they swing for lethal on it's your turn, you cast this bad boy and make their life total within striking distance, and then finish them off with your tokens, and then just laugh. You'll probably be kicked off the table for laughing like that, but if you laugh maniacally enough, they'll think it's funny. All right. So that's that. So let's protect our investments now. We've got Elixir of Immortality to give us some recursion, to get back all of our juicy cards. Another card that doesn't see enough play, in my opinion, is Creeping Renaissance. This is amazing. With the amount of enchantments that we run, being able to get back all those things that got blown up in the early game, like Warstorm Surge, like Parallel Lives, like Mirari's Wake, because they're going to get blown up. Get them back. And not only that, but you got flashbacks. So, this deck is very, very powerful. This deck is very, very resilient, I should say, against people stopping your strategy. Because not only that, we have Boris Charm, too. Let's protect all of our permanents. Not creatures, permanents. Who cares about the double strike? That thing's awesome. And then last but not least, Rootborn Defenses. You basically can make someone real sad. And that is it. That is our Marath, Will of the Wild. This guy is just great. He is a Swiss Army knife of awesome. Making tokens, making the ability to ping for damage, and if not, make him a big fatty and swing with him for general damage. Who cares, But mainly, he's there for an infinite source of token generation. So, and there's rare occasions where you're not drawing your tokens, you always know you got Marath waiting for you in your command zone. Because the thing is, you don't want to be conservative with him. You want to, as soon as you hit 3 mana, you play him immediately. Because you want him to die. The bigger he gets, the more tokens he's going to generate. And so on and so forth. And with the amount of mana we generate, who cares? We can afford him in the late game when we've cast him for the 4th or 5th time. It's just going to get out of hand for our opponents. So thank you so much, guys. This is Planeswalker 411. Again, if you like what you're seeing here, hit the subscribe button. You can also take a look at my Facebook page if you'd like to discuss the deck further or if you have ideas. I am by no means a master deck builder, so if there's some obvious card you're like, hey, stupid, why aren't you playing this? I would love to hear your input. But please don't call me stupid. That's all I ask. All right, guys. But this is Planeswalker 411 reminding you that in Commander, there can be only one.